period jump dates.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, that should be on its way to you.
Test, test. Yes, there's sound.
I think Tuesday.
Oh, it's a Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday's a good day.
Maybe we'll deal too. Some things are more settled and stuff. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, they've been terrific. They've given us the space for free.
It's not.
There's all the space
I
available.
feel like somebody, you people on some of these things don't know. When it breaks down.
Well, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
Yeah, I know. All that part. I guess they get into how this works.
oh shoot, I know that Tyler camera.
Yeah.
We need to buy our own.
I would do that. Like this was the real setup.
Registration. Something called
Yeah, I did some of that with recycle.
Yeah.
Trying to re-elect the doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the canvassing of the trust brigade, and we're going to also have people sign up just to get on the sidewalk and protest on our gay veterans office. Off 104.
Yeah. I'd like to do that.
Good, yeah. I hope we get our newsletter.
Basically, District 7 and 8.
And if you good scanning the QR code, now I'll send you.
Well, I'm getting better at it. I decided in the last year that I would get on the train. It really leaves me behind. I mean, what I hate is that restaurants. I absolutely having to go into two
Committee meetings, we sit in the square, table, in the middle there's just dynamics. No.
We use Alex.
Okay. No, it's not now.
Really well.
And there's two of them, and they just, it's only gets recognized if you're on his turns.
That's this can do that, but I turned it on for this one.
That's because I
So
like
it's looking at an owl chat. It doesn't buy an owl.
Okay, never
We were
mind.
looking at one.
I just like Slack.
These automatically turn, right? So I wonder if you just buy a couple of these and maybe the software. Right? Make it work.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw that.
Seem to have
You probably have an organization. We have an icon for it on this.
Oh.
Did you have to join? Yeah, you have to join.
And then they have to approve.
I was going to pick up
No, you just your actual name and your phone number.
A lot of guys in the happy hour tonight. Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. Every I'm tired. It's like there's so much to read, and I get over 100 emails a day. Do I read Robert Wright? Do I read Invisible? Do I read?
What's the one that does the history? She's fabulous.
Oh, Heather Cox Richardson. Yeah, it's just.
I am. Dennis, here's my list of just the
Daily.
great.
Oh, that's mine. Yeah. Freakonomics.
Have you heard of
What?
Have you heard of these two women?
That's right on your phone.
This is a local.
Yes.
I text you a link.
Fix the link in the Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Yes.
The last touch podcast. This is particular. This is content.
No, I mean, I have my phone.
Just to get away from all the media. Pod Save
These are all
America.
podcasts.
These are all podcasts.
I think I need to do it on the web because I don't think it's okay. Let me try that.
Oh, I haven't heard. I listen to CPR all the time.
Yeah, it's
I haven't heard of
purplish.
purplish.
Yeah. What's the
Oh, yeah.
Like signals from out Yes. I think I want to do a court watch. I actually haven't been following through. Watch.
No, I don't have signal, but I have. See, I have smart tutor Slack settings, secure. No, I don't have signal. I think that somebody must have sent
I can send people links to join the conversation. And then I can actually it's not difficult. And again, most people are using it only because it's secure and they won't share the conversations.
But is Big Brother listening?
In theory, yes. I know that we're talks about that this very
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, if we're supposed to call our representatives to tell us about it, that it was a bill that they
extend it.
extend.
In fact, increase.
Is that the build event page?
Yep.
I don't know how much. I guess they're looking for.
But the way that is trying to sneak it in by to it. Yes.
But I'm not surprised.
That one?
Yep.
So you sent me a text?
I sent you an email.
My DPOD email?
Yep.
I know.
Should we start with some announcements?
Right.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. You don't have to call response. My name is Noah Stout. Thank you for being here today. We're going to start off with some announcements, and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Pat, who has the mic right there. So remember.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon.
And I would like to start this off by introducing our county chair, James Reyes.
Everybody.
Emily Parker, who has helped us put this whole thing on. She'll be her assistant. Tyler back there. Olivia and Pat Manning, and of course our moderator, Noah. We really appreciate your time and effort. I know Saturdays are pretty hard, it's family time, but we are very happy to see that you all are interested in who you are going to be voting for on June 30th. So I'm Pat Moreland, part of House District 8, on which Shiloh sits, and probably most of you, if you're not in 7, you also reside in 8, and we really do appreciate you. We meet every House District 8 meets every third Saturday at the Park Hill United Methodist Church. Please come out and join us. We have coffee at 9:30, and our meeting starts promptly at 10. We go 10 to 11:30, and then we have a Q&A after, or just plain old socialization and get to know one another after the meeting. But at any time, you are free to get up and move out as you so choose. And we do appreciate the fact, and spread the word that if they want to know, anybody that wants more information, wants more education, please point them to your House District meetings. House District 7 meets every 4th Saturday. Tyler, where are you all meeting now?
The District 5 Police Station in Montbello.
The District 5 station in Montbello for House District 7
10:30.
at 10:30. So please pass the word. We need to have more people involved, at least educated. We have our electeds there who give us updates on what's going on at the Capitol, what's being passed, what they're looking at, what they're trying to do. And a lot of times they need our support. So please do that. One last announcement is that we are having, House District 8 is having a spaghetti dinner on April 25th. And you can go to the DOPD website at House District 8. Hopefully we'll have some flyers here before the end of our session. With all that being said, I'm going to turn all this over to Emily Parker.
All right, folks, I want to thank you for coming out to our third Here's the Ticket event. We had one in February, one in March. This is our April event, and if you're interested in hearing from these candidates one more time, we will be doing that on May 7th. So mark your calendars, May 7th. Hopefully the candidates in the room already have that on their calendars. That will be at Welshire Presbyterian Church, so on the opposite side of Denver, way down south. And again, that will be your last chance that the Denver Dems are putting on a forum before the primary election on June 30th. You can sign up on Eventbrite for that, and when you tell all your friends and family about this great event you came to today and they're jealous, you can tell them we have one more opportunity. This event is being live streamed as well, so you can share the video afterwards. All right, I'm going to give it back to Noah, and we'll get started.
Sounds good. Well, I'll run you through the schedule for today. So first we're going to start with the Secretary of State candidates. We have one candidate who is here who is about to lock in, Amanda Gonzalez, and then we will have the treasurer candidate, Jeff Bridges. He will speak as well. And then our final event will be the three candidates for the Attorney General's race will answer questions. There will be an opening statement, and you'll see the first two will be much more of a kind of fireside chat questions, and they'll be regulated a little differently than the main event, I guess you might call it. And then there'll be an opening statement, and there will be some submitted questions. And then once we finish those, if there is time, we will have audience questions, and then we will move to closing statements. And so now we are just waiting on our Secretary of State's candidate, Amanda Gonzalez, who told me that she's coming directly from, do we have a?
We don't have an update, she's on her way.
Well, take that into account. And so should I?
We can take a breather. We don't have Senator Bridges here, right?
No, they're not starting until, yeah.
Right.
And so as soon as our first candidate, Secretary of State candidate, thank you for being here on time, and know they're running from space to space. If we do have, perfect, we have our Secretary of State candidate, Amanda Gonzalez.
Noah, do we know why the other two candidates for Secretary of State didn't come?
There is only one other candidate for Secretary of State currently, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh.
John's looking at you.
It's all right.
We don't know why she couldn't come.
Welcome. Come up to the stage. So many events today.
No, just you.
So it's going to be a conversation. I'm so much more excited about a conversation. Nobody wants to hear politicians hammer them all day. All right,
so let's. Great. Yep, and as I was saying, we're going to start with a 2-minute opening, and feel free to talk about yourself.
Yeah. And then we'll get to questions. Perfect. Great. Hello. It is so good to see all of you. I'm just continually impressed at how many folks show up to these things, because you could be anywhere else. It's a beautiful day outside, and you came to this because you care about your democracy and you care about your community, and so I'm so thankful. Whenever I do these talks, I ask folks two fundamental questions. And the first is what a phenomenal place Colorado is
to be a voter. Right? We automatically send a ballot mail to every registered voter. We have same-day voter registration. We have great in-person options. It is really phenomenal. And in a moment where the president of our country is threatening every aspect that I just listed, can we afford to have anyone in charge of the 2028 presidential in Colorado who has never run an election before? So my name is Amanda Gonzalez. I am currently the clerk and recorder in Jefferson County, where I run elections for nearly 500,000 people. I have more voters in Jefferson County than the entire state of Wyoming. And I'm thrilled to say that under my leadership, not only have we won national awards for our voter engagement and outreach, but we have also had the highest voter turnout that we've ever had in history. And we had more individuals turn out and vote in 2025 than any other county in the whole state. And so that is what it's about. I am running for Secretary of State because the Secretary of State is our democracy defender in chief, and our democracy is under threat. A little more about me. I am from a really normal family. My dad builds houses for a living. My mom works for Costco. I was the first in my family to go to college and then law school, and with your help, I will be the first Latina to ever serve as Colorado's Secretary of State. But my experience goes beyond the clerk and recorder's office. Let's see, I was the executive director of Colorado Common Cause, where I helped write the laws that doubled the number of drop boxes in the state, helped write the law that created automatic voter registration, helped write the law that dramatically increased the number of counties that have to translate their ballots. I am ready to protect the right to vote statewide because I have been doing it for my entire career. And so we love your support, and I hope that we get to get a little nerdy with these questions because that's always more fun. So thanks for having me, and let's chat. I'll just say thanks.
Yeah, we can open it up. Yeah.
What will you do if the Trump administration sends ICE agents to
I can, you know what, I can do the mic.
go around drop boxes and tries to block people from voting, or vandalizes drop boxes?
Yeah. So the question is, what am I going to do? What are we going to do if ICE or FBI or DOJ or whoever, right, shows up and tries to intimidate people at drop boxes? The first thing I'm going to do is just acknowledge how, I have no better word than bonkers, the fact that we even have to talk about this is. Okay? So when I was at Common Cause, I ran the state's largest nonpartisan election protection effort. I'm an attorney. I would train a couple hundred attorneys every year to answer a hotline in English and Spanish for people that had questions about voting or were experiencing voter suppression. So I worked really closely with the clerks even before I was one. And every election official I knew got some version of a death threat in 2020. And so when I ran in 2022, I unfortunately knew that this was part of the gig. And even though I had to ask a friend, like, hey, if it gets really ugly in 2024 and I can't stay at my place, could I live with you for more than a month? And back then, I was worried about election deniers with guns. And now, the conversation we're having is about agents of our own government. And so, what are we going to do? It is going to take all of us. I'm telling everyone to panic responsibly. And the reason I'm telling you that is there are approximately 68,000 Border Patrol agents, ICE agents nationally. There are hundreds of thousands of voting locations nationally. They cannot be everywhere. The reason I think that we need to prepare for in case Colorado is a target is because we have some of the best voting in the entire country. And because of our friend Tina Peters, who just keeps zombie-like popping up in the news, right? Why are we still talking about her? So, what are we doing? I spend hours every week contingency planning for how we're going to keep my 430,000 voters safe. We need to maintain every aspect of Colorado's voting system because if you don't feel safe going to a drop box, I want to have in-person options for you. If you don't feel safe going in person, we need to have mail options for you. We're also probably going to need coordinated community efforts. You can drop off your ballot +9, okay? And we might need to have some organization around talking to each other. So if your neighbors and friends don't feel safe dropping off their ballots, we can connect them with someone who does. We also need to update our emergency ballot procedures. So we have procedures right now that if you are in a car accident and you were planning on the last day of voting, because I told you to vote early and you didn't, right? But then an emergency happened and you ended up in the hospital. We have a process by which we can get you a ballot. We may need to expand that for other kinds of emergencies that involve intimidation from our federal government. And then the final thing I will say is that intimidation of a voter is always illegal, full stop, no matter what, whether that is from an individual or a federal agent. And so I will always use every tool in the legal toolbox to defend your right to vote and make sure that everyone is abiding by the law, including our federal agents. So that's kind of a longer answer. Yes. Thank you.
Question in the back.
And we have a microphone so we can hear you on the live
Yeah,
stream.
folks online, so we want to hear. Hi, wondering if you could expand on your answer, especially specifically around any potential Supreme Court decision around mail-in ballots and day of election or elections and things like that we're seeing happening right now.
Clarifying, are you thinking about the recent executive order? Is that kind of one of the things around?
No, more of the Supreme Court hearing
The Mississippi
the case around.
There's one around postmarks. There's been lots of stuff. Yeah, so, okay, great. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
So the question was around, I'm paraphrasing, which is not fair to you. The question is, hey, we have a disaster at the Supreme Court. And what happens with the court cases, some of which are currently moving, we've had some recent decisions. What is the impact to voting in Colorado? Yep. Okay. All right, yes, we have a disaster at the Supreme Court. And, when I was at Common Cause, we actually had a whole line of cases teed up around getting rid of Citizens United, right? Because we also know that that's one of the major issues plaguing voters. And we didn't move forward with any of those because right now you're getting worse case law than what we started with. So some of that has recently happened is conversations around when you can accept ballots. So for example, our military and overseas voters have an additional 8 days to get their ballots into their county clerk and recorder. Right? If you're serving on a base in Afghanistan, it might take a little longer to get your ballot back. Right? We need to make sure that we are preserving those options and making sure that our military and overseas voters are able to have their voices heard. There's also been conversations both in the courts and with the USPS, with our post office, around postmarks. So this is my friendly Know Your Rights training, that in Colorado, it has always been the case that your county clerk and recorder must receive your ballot by 7 p.m. on election day. So postmarks were never good enough here. We have, with the exception of those military and overseas ballots, we have to receive your ballot by 7 p.m. on election day. So make sure you get those in. Now, the Constitution gives the right to administer elections to Congress and the states. So not by executive order. And a lot of the chatter that you're hearing right now is because of these unconstitutional executive orders that Trump keeps issuing. And be clear, that is about confusing you. That is about making people think that their vote is in jeopardy when it's not, right? He can say that he wants unicorns to run every election, and that's just not how election law works. Now, we would be in more trouble if Congress passed it. So, if they were to pass something like the STATE Act, which dramatically changes voter registration, I actually think that's the scariest part about it. It's not just the idea, the IDs that you need to bring to vote, but overnight, because the implementation on it as written is a nightmare, overnight, millions of Coloradans would suddenly become unregistered to vote because you would have to have shown documentary proof of citizenship at the time of registration, which is not, you all do not have to show up at your clerk's office right now with your birth certificate or a passport in order to register to vote. In fact, most Coloradans get registered online or through our automatic voter registration process at the DMVs. So we would be in big, big trouble if Congress passed a law and the Supreme Court would almost surely uphold it. For now, we have to hold the line. We have to elect election administrators at every level, the Secretary of State and our clerk and reporters, who are going to stand up to overreach from the federal government. That is going to be the biggest thing that we can do right now, is we need leaders that are not going to voluntarily comply with his orders that we know are not legal.
Thank you. I saw a question in the back.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I think in general, our democratic messaging has been inadequate. And we target a lot towards geeks. My guess is that most of the people in this room fit that description. So, in one sentence, what is the moral purpose of the Democratic Party in the United States?
I hate to do this because it sounds so politician-y. I am so much less interested in the point of the Democratic Party. I am so much more interested in how we make sure that every eligible voter is able to vote and have their ballot accurately counted. Right? About half of Colorado's voters are now unaffiliated. And we have to make sure, especially in this primary, that we are reaching them as well. I mentioned my whole family's Republican. And my dad did a campaign video with me. You should watch it, he's adorable. But he was only able to do that because voting rights are the one thing that we agree on. We don't agree on the environment. We don't agree on guns. We don't agree on paying for education. We don't agree on a whole mess of things. We do agree that every eligible voter should participate. I don't think he would have made a video like that with me if I'd been running for a policy office or a legislative office, because we do agree on so much. And so I think what we need to be talking about is the whole point of participating in civic life is to have your damn voice heard and to make sure that your reality is reflected at the Capitol. I don't know about you, but I'm not from a wealthy family. I don't have deep, deep political connections. And so when people are talking about healthcare or housing or affording education, it often sounds hell out of touch to me. I'm somebody who graduated from law school with more than $120,000 in debt. And so when we say, oh, loan forgiveness is no big deal, I know that people aren't hearing me. And in a functional democracy, your voice is actually heard.
Question, I believe, from the EJI. Yeah, thanks.
How will you balance kind of transparency with kind of bad actors who are, weaponizing data process, and our citizens who have questions about still our elections being free? And how do you combat that?
Yeah. I fundamentally believe in transparency. So a great example is a couple years back, there was a bill that would have changed our Open Records Act and made it harder to get open records. I will tell you, as the clerk and reporter who oversees elections for nearly 500,000 folks, can open records be a pain in my neck? Yeah, they can. I have election deniers on a very regular basis, demanding all kinds of records that we have to review and make sure that we're not giving away information that we shouldn't, and make sure that we're protecting the individual voter. It takes work. And those records belong to the public, and they have a right to them. And does that get weaponized? Yeah, it does. The other thing that could be a fine line is when you have an honest question, and when is it an entryway to a threat? So one of the things that we do in my current office is we give tours of our ballot processing facility. Because as long as you are not making threats, right? Like you saw something on Fox News, and you have questions about the way our democracy works, right? Something sounded fishy to you. We invite you in, right? You don't have to trust me. Come see it with your own eyes. Come see that every single part of our election and our ballot processing is handled in bipartisan teams. Your ballot is never alone with one person or one party. Come see that we test all of the equipment before anybody votes. We air gap all of our tabulation machines, and then we test everything again after the fact to make sure that no funny business happened, even though that we know that it did. Right? Come see all of that for your own eyes. I've never had somebody come through the tour and then say, this seems fishy to me. They do say things like, okay, seems fine here, but what about Georgia? I don't know, man, I don't run elections in Georgia, right? And so I will say, we invite people in. I want it to be transparent because I think that's how you build trust. And you have to be knowledgeable and plan for the bad actors, because not everybody has our best interests and our democracy's best interest in mind. But we cannot shut down access to the government because of some bad actors, right? Like, we can't get into the bullies. We have to protect our democracy. We're not going to be able to do that by making everything darker and happening behind closed doors.
Jonathan, you had a question in the back. Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm Jonathan, and there are a couple of ways that people like myself, ordinary citizens, can get involved in helping register folks to vote. One is like a voter registration drive, which I think is much more complicated in terms of training, passing tests at 100% accuracy, and then all kinds of very complicated procedures of getting documents back to the Secretary of State's office. I've got a QR code very handy on my phone, which I believe links right to the Secretary of State's office and enables a person to vote, to register to vote right on their phone. Quick question, with regard to confirming signatures, if I get somebody to get to the website, if they don't have a Colorado driver's license, is there another way that the Secretary of State can get the signature of the person I'm talking to? How easy is that?
I believe somebody earlier called us geeks, and I don't think they were wrong. So thank you for being the human that like carries around a voter registration QR code. I love it. So with regard to signature, a couple of pieces. One is that if you do not have a signature on file, because that is the first thing we do before we even open your ballot, we do not open that envelope until we have verified that your signature matches who you say you are. And even if you only have one signature on file, right? I don't know about you all, but maybe I got really excited when I was filling out my voter registration form, and I had this beautiful signature on there. It's like Amanda M. Gonzalez, right? And then when I signed my ballot, it was on the back of my steering wheel before I dropped it in the box. Right? Those might not match. So if you don't have a signature on file, or you only have one and we weren't sure that it was you, what happens is we send you what's called a cure letter. If we don't have a signature on file, your ballot actually comes to you with a note that says, hey, we need a copy of your ID with this to verify that you are who you say you are, because we don't have your signature on file, and we need to get that out. So there are processes by which we request that from folks, and we're only able to count their ballot if we have it. The second piece, though, is your clerk and recorder can upload additional signatures anytime. So we do, I told y'all, I want to make sure that every eligible voter participates. And so one of the first things I did in my current office is create a full-time community engagement program. We were out at every pipe festival, every dispensary, every high school, every laundromat that would take us, because we need to be reaching normal people and making sure they have accurate information about elections. One of the things that you'll see at our tables at any of those events is a signature card. Hey, are you older? Maybe you've had a medical event and your signature changed? Let's update your signature and we'll add it to the file. Are you a newer voter? You're not sure if we have a signature on file for you? Sign this card with your ID. We're going to upload it to the file. So we can do that at any time if people want to add their signature. So they can reach out to their county clerk, visit us at one of the events. We can make sure that we have the signature on file.
And even if they're on their phone at the moment registering to vote, because I hear you talking about people who are registered and sending their ballots in, but I'm backing up a step. I want to register a new voter.
Yeah, they'll have to do it after the registration first, then adding signatures and stuff.
Okay, will they get something in the mail from the Secretary of State's office?
They'll get something when they get registered, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, please let me remind you, we do have people online.
So sorry, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Please let me remind you that we do have people online and you will need to use the mic. Thank you.
Three more questions, and you gotta be a little faster because I appreciate it. Let's do yes, and then Richard, and then over here.
Thank you for being here. I agree that preventing elections is the most important job of the Secretary of State, but it's not the only thing. So my question is just what plans you have for modernizing Secretary of State's 1990s looking website done in technology?
I love it, yes. So the question was about other aspects other than voting and modernizing the website specifically. So 2 overarching things here. One is that your government should never make you feel stupid. It should always make you feel welcome. And the way that I can illustrate that I've actually done this in practice is my current job not only oversees elections, but also oversees 5 motor vehicle offices. And we did modernize the motor vehicle office website because of this. But I'm so proud to say that our motor vehicle offices have a 4.8 star review on Google. Who reviews motor vehicle offices, let alone positively? But that should always be the goal of your government, to work for you, to make you feel included. And so that's the way I feel about business registrations, other parts of the Secretary's office. The other piece is the Secretary of State's office is also where all of the information about campaign finance lives. If you want to know who is trying to influence your vote, the place you're supposed to be able to find it is the Secretary of State's office. And you are absolutely right that the website, which is called, the program is called Tracer, feels like it is a MySpace page and the back button doesn't always work. And so if this is supposed to be the backstop, this is supposed to be the way that you protect yourself against nefarious actors and billionaires who are trying to influence policies in your life, it cannot be that you need a master's degree to know how to work.
Great. Okay, and 2 more questions, and I'll give you a nice hand if you need it. Go ahead.
Hi, real quick. We have a popular Secretary of State who's leaving office, who's developed something of a national profile. That said, what are 1 or 2 lessons learned, things that you might have done or would do differently when you're Secretary of State?
So, having been a county clerk and reporter, having been on the front lines of the election deniers, of laying out ballots, of processing ballots, I know how much support the clerks need. And I am so excited to build out a more robust program. So as somebody who runs elections for a jurisdiction larger than an entire state, I do have a full-time IT person. I have a full-time communications person. And so if any of those emergencies happen, right, if we have agents that drop boxes, if we have USPS go down, I've done the contingency planning and I have the communications infrastructure to make sure people are still able to vote. If you are in Pinellas County, if you have 3 employees total, including the person who's giving out marriage license and a tax to your car. And so it's I believe it is the Secretary of State's responsibility to make sure that all of the clerks have all of the infrastructure and support that they need in case we have that kind of emergency. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about. And you're absolutely right. It's going to be about protecting our democracy. It's going to be about defending what we have. It's going to be about standing up to ICE, DOJ, and the FBI. And it's going to be about making sure, first and foremost, that people are able to vote confidently. And we're going to do that by setting up additional infrastructure frameworks.
Final question.
Okay, I've seen the looks of the support staff bringing us along, so I don't actually have a question, I just have a comment. My name is Elizabeth Moran. I serve as Executive Director of the ARC of Colorado, which is a statewide advocacy organization for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'm here in my personal capacity today, but you said a couple of things that there's been a lot of talk about voting, and you said your government should never make you feel stupid. It should always make you feel welcome, and the goal should be to make everyone feel included. So my ask of you is to update the website to make sure that it's not archaic and it is fully accessible. And then there was a lot of talk about voter registration, signatures, those sorts of things. And so my ask of you is, if you end up in office, is that you pay particular attention to people who are non-traditional communicators. They may not have traditional IDs, they may be nonverbal, they may not have the gross motor skills to sign, to have a signature on file, to do the things. That does not mean that they don't have the ability to make a decision about issues that are really important to them. And so my ask of you is to be intentional in how you are designing things, because we really want to live in a Colorado for all. I'm not just talking about the people with IED. I'm talking about the people with traumatic brain injuries who are aging with dementia or Alzheimer's who have suffered a physical or mental trauma that means that they can't interface the same way everyone else can. And I really want to see a Colorado for all, and I do believe that voting is one of the most important places for us to ensure accessibility to all of our non-traditional communicators.
And my follow-up ask is, please help me do it. We cannot have systems, I have dyslexia. We cannot have systems that are designed without input by impacted communities, right? I don't have a visual impairment. I don't have a traumatic brain injury. And so I would want partnership from people who do to make sure that we are actually getting it right.
I'll reach out to you.
Because I don't think we can get it right otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Give a round of applause to
In and out, you did great.
And now we're going to quickly transition to our unopposed Democratic candidate for state treasurer, Senator Jeff Bridges.
Thank you. I get less time because I'm unopposed. So we'll make this, I'm going to have a very short intro and then I want questions because I want to hear from you all. So I'm State Senator Jeff Bridges, grew up here in Colorado, went to Littleton Public Schools, K through 12, so not Denver, but Denver Metro, Denver adjacent. And I worked for Ken Salazar in the U.S. Senate. I have a master's degree in divinity. And that, yes, is a unique qualification for anyone in the legislature. But I am on the budget committee and chair the budget committee. And the budget is a moral document. And it puts in black and white, dollars and cents, exactly what we value and how much we value it. And the same is true for our business. Because where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. And right now, the treasurer oversees billions of dollars of investments. They are spread all across the country. They are in Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, they're in Washington, they're in Wall Street, and I want to bring those dollars home to Colorado and put them to work solving the problems we have here in the state, investing in housing that people can actually afford, in infrastructure to attract and keep good paying jobs in the state, and especially as we see Trump pulling back on clean energy, the state can step in and provide investments to ensure that we are going to hit our goals on 100% free, 100% clean energy here in the state of Colorado. Thank you. We got a couple of clean energy cans back there. So I am on the budget committee this year. We had to cut $1 billion because of Tabor. Last year when I chaired the budget committee, we had to cut $1 billion. Over the summer, we cut $1 billion because of Trump. What Trump and Tabor are doing to the state, they're crushing us financially. The treasurer's office, by reinvesting here in the state instead of nationally, we can help to solve that problem. That is why I'm running. Thank you so much. Questions? Thank you.
Hi. I'm going to show my ignorance here, but as a senator, I can see where you would have influence over the budget. But as treasurer, tell me more about the office itself. How does the office of treasurer, how do you have control, or when you say you're going to bring money back, how do you have the control over that if the legislature is actually what passes the laws? I thought you were sort of accountable to the legislature.
Great question. I appreciate it because running for treasurer it is less sexy of a job than the folks you're going to hear from later. It is sort of the position I think most people think the least about between our statewide electeds. I think, and I know it sounds crazy because I know people think about the treasurer's office, I think it could be the most impactful office over the next 4 to 8 years because of the dollars that we have to invest in Colorado. Where do those come from? So, between when you pay your taxes and when those dollars go out the door, according to what the budget committee and the governor and the legislative branch say they need to go to. So, when we pay state employees, when we give money to school districts, we support grant programs and housing and all of that. Between when you pay your taxes and those dollars go out, they sit in what's called the treasury pool. And the treasury pool's investments are managed by the treasurer. And at the height of COVID, there were still $8 billion in the treasury pool. So that's at least $8 billion. So COVID had the fewest number of dollars coming in, the highest number of dollars going out. There's still $8 billion that could be put to work. And right now, those funds, all those dollars, are invested according to how the treasurer sets the investment strategy. And that investment strategy right now is Washington, it's Wall Street, it's Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. And being as treasurer, I can set that investment policy to say, not Washington. I want Walsenburg. I want cities and counties here in the state that are building infrastructure that we need. We have investments in other cities and counties across the country. Like we're helping there are folks in other states that we are funded the roads and bridges. That's not where those dollars should be funding roads and bridges. They should be here in Colorado doing that work for the people of our state. We need to put those dollars to work solving our problems, not just in a broad national portfolio, in a way that of course ensures we can still pay the paychecks for our state employees, make sure that we can fund schools. But any money that we make, any interest we earn as people goes out as table refunds. So there's actually no incentive. Like you can hire Warren Buffett for this job, and it makes no change. It just would increase the table refunds that we have out in the state. So changing that investment strategy to say, instead of saying, how do we make as much money off this as possible? We're going to change that to say, how can we do the most good for the people of Colorado? How can we make sure those dollars are working for the state? That's the difference I think the Treasurer's Office.
Okay, so you yourself can make that.
There are people online.
You can make those.
All repeated.
All right, you can make those decisions
Yes.
yourself without approval from the governor or the legislature.
The question was, can I make those changes myself without approval from the governor, the legislature, or whoever? The answer is yes. The Supreme Court has said that public interest investments are within the fiduciary duty of the state treasurer. So yes, that is a change that I can make in the first 100 days, and I will.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Next question. Maybe your last question if it goes long.
I'm sorry. You give a politician a microphone,
No, this one should hopefully be easy for you. Michelle Bob here. And my question is, you mentioned Tabor and the constraints that we have with Tabor. So my question to you is not actually about Tabor, because there are other vehicles that can be used to help Colorado manage its finances more efficiently. And one of those vehicles is state banking, creating a state bank. What is your position on that? Because we know that we do have one state in the union that has a state bank, and whenever the nation goes through financial difficulties, that state doesn't have a problem. And it's always linked back to the fact that they have a state bank that they're able to do self-funding for some of those things that you just described.
Thank you very much for the question. There is one state, for folks who aren't familiar with state banking, North Dakota has a state bank, and that bank is essentially functions like the treasurer's office. And so here's where you and I are aligned, 100% on the state bank. They put the dollars to work for the state. Instead of having this national portfolio, they invest in the state. Guess what? The answer to my previous question is why I don't think we need a state bank. Because I can do that as treasurer. I don't need to get the permission of the governor, the legislature. And if we were to create a state bank here in the state of Colorado, it would require a constitutional change. So we would need 55% of the voters in the state to approve any measure that would create a state bank. There are ways to create a special purpose authority or an enterprise that we could call a state bank, but it would be illegal for the state to put the finances managed by the treasurer into those vehicles and treat them like a state bank. So if we were to do what they do in North Dakota, it would require a change to the Constitution. If I'm fighting for a change to the Constitution, I'm fighting Tabor. And in fact, I'm introducing a bill this year to fight Tabor. We are going to increase the Tabor rationing limit so that we can actually invest in our schools. It'll mean billions of dollars more for K-12 public education. It'll be on your ballots in November, assuming we get it through the legislature, which I feel pretty confident about. So to keep an eye out for that, we're going to raise that limit, we're going to be able to invest in our schools, do the work, and we're going to take on Tabor.
Final question.
This is the same question I just asked, but I'm going to refine it just a bit. As an elected Democrat, you become de facto a communicator for the Democratic Party. And our communication systems are very poor because we actually rely on elected Democrats to say who we are. So it's really an obligation for for every elected. And so this question, it will be asked of everybody if I can like. And the question is, and let's say in one sentence, and you're in MDiv, so you should be able to do this.
MDiv's not longer.
What is the moral purpose of the Democratic Party?
To serve and lift up the least among us. There we go, I did it short.
Oh, we might have time for this question right here.
We got a little bit of
if you promise to keep it,
This should be an easy one. The Taylor bill that you were going to propose, is this just going to, why don't you just eliminate the refunds? And keep the fact that any tax increase should be approved by the taxpayers.
So that part stays. What we're talking about, this is going to be a little while, only a little bit. So if this is the Tabor rationing limit, right? If it is inflation plus population. So the budget actually increases every year. I say we cut $1 billion. What I mean is that the budget itself, the numbers still grew by inflation plus population, but providing the same services year over year costs about $1 billion more than that limit allows us, because healthcare goes up like this, wage growth goes up like this, the cost of construction materials for roads and bridges goes up like this. So funding, doing the same thing the year before, the next year as we did the year before, costs about $1 billion more. And that's the problem. That is the rationing limit that we need to solve, is we need to be able to grow with revenue. Even if we do, Medicaid is still growing too fast, but we'll address that. So what this measure would do is it raises that cap up to here. It sets the Tabor rationing limit of inflation plus population, plus what we spend on K-12. That's a $4.5 billion increase in that rationing limit. It's far larger than the increase that was in Ref C. Under Ref C, which we passed about 20 years ago, we had about 2 decades before we had to worry about that rationing limit again. This should mean that for the foreseeable future, we will not be up against that rationing limit. The last time we were, Republican Governor Bill Owens led the fight to increase that Tabor cap. This time it's us. This time it's teachers saying that this will free up the funds we need to actually invest in K-12 public education. And that was going, oh, I was quick again.
I think if you have a question, I'm sure I will volunteer you to answer that question. Maybe in the floor. Okay, but if we give a round of applause to
on the website, so just look it up and shoot me a text and I'll send you one back. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, I mean, yes. It will not be the free-for-all lecture style that we had. Very important. And so, I think I described this as our main event earlier. We have 3 of the 4 candidates running for the Democratic nomination for Attorney General. We're here today. We will, this is a very participatory group, which is great. We have a few questions that were submitted before that cover a few topics, and then I believe we'll have time to get to questions from the audience. I think that's really important. And so we will start, and we will go, and sometimes I know they go alphabetical all the time, and everyone's stuck in the same order. We will mix up the orders, and we can't just copy your opponent's speech or something like that. And so we will start with openings. And let's start with, and I'll use first names, let's start with Michael on the end and then come to me. So you have 2 minutes, there's a clock in front of you, and I will say 10 seconds here. I will say 1 minute gently, and then 10 seconds, and I will cut you off. Because I'm just a guy down the street, so I don't care. So go ahead.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Michael Doherty. I'm the District Attorney for Boulder County, and I'm running for Attorney General of Colorado because I'm determined to fight for this great state. That's why I'm here today. Earlier this week, I received an award from the YWCA for my work in standing with them and fighting to eliminate racism and empower women. They talked about my work with the Latino community, the trans community, and standing up and fighting for what's right. That starts by showing up. That's why I'm here today. That's why when I leave you, I'm going to go down to Pueblo, along with my 2 friends here, for a candidate forum. It is about showing up, period. If you're going to be the people's lawyer, you show up and answer the people's questions. And tonight, when I'm down in Pueblo, I'm going to miss the beginning of the Doherty twins going to their senior prom. But as my wife told me, we don't need you there at the start, we need you there by the end. So I'll be there for the end of the program. But to me, it's always about showing up and fighting for what's right. I've been a prosecutor and leader at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I'm the one candidate in this race who's worked for the Colorado Attorney General's Office. My family and I moved to Colorado so I could work for the Attorney General's Office and head up a conviction integrity review project. It's about fighting for justice with integrity. And as the elected district attorney in Boulder County, I've had the honor of leading on criminal justice reform, while also leading my community through times of crisis. I led the Marshall Fire investigation. I led the prosecution of the King Soopers mass murder case, and I handled that trial myself, took that to court, and held the shooter fully accountable. And right now, I'm prosecuting the Pearl Street firebomb case, a horrific anti-Semitic act of terror and hate. It's why you need experience as a lawyer and as a leader to pick up where Phil Weiser's going to leave off. There are 724 public servants who choose to work at the Attorney General's office because they believe in the mission and they believe in the leader. And having overseen the Manhattan DA's office and supervised 1,300 people when I was there, I know firsthand what that takes and what that means. For example, on immigration.
Thank you, Michael.
Talk to you about that soon.
I can get it too. Hi everybody, it's an honor to be here. I'm David Seligman, workers' rights, civil rights, consumer protection lawyer, executive director of the legal nonprofit Towards Justice, the father of 3 daughters, 11, 9, and 7. I think my friend Michael is trying to mess with me by continuing to talk about mom, which gives me a little bit of an existential crisis. I grew up here in Park Hill, moved back home, and have dedicated every single day of my legal career to standing up in court for working families, using the law boldly and courageously in ways no one had ever tried before. For Amazon delivery drivers forced to urinate in bottles to meet Amazon's quotas, for rideshare drivers, for meat packers up in Greeley with disfigured hands, for renters across Colorado, buried in junk fees to the largest corporate landlord in the country, Graystar. We just won in the United States Supreme Court a case I've been litigating for more than a decade on behalf of tens of thousands of people detained at the immigration detention facility here in Aurora, taking on the Geo Group, the private prison company that owns it. Standing up for hundreds of thousands of Coloradans, drowning in medical debt to billion-dollar hospital systems like UCL, when we've got 100 billionaires who own homes in Aspen, one of the wealthiest states in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We do not need to be living this way. Sued the Trump administration in one, and we just sued the Polis administration and stopped the government from turning over Coloradans' personal information to ICE. Because we've got a choice to make right now in the Democratic Party. Democrats in the State House just helped to roll back overtime protections for farm workers, overtime protections that I helped to enshrine when I helped draft and pass the Farm Worker Bill of Rights in 2022. Because we got to decide whether we're going to be fighting over the scraps, right? Or whether we're going to be banding together workers and ranchers and small businesses and families across the state. Say, you know what? We're going to stand up to the Goliaths, right? To the private equity companies and monopolists and ICE that's terrorizing our communities to take on the system with the wealthy and powerful. Play by different set of rules. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Hetal Doshi, and I'm running to serve as your next Attorney General. All this talk about prom has me thinking, looking across this room, how many of us are glad that social media did not exist when we all met, right? All right. So, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who I am. I am a proud first-generation American, the daughter of 2 immigrants, and my story personifies the American dream and gives me hope that this is a good and great nation whose best days are still ahead of us. So I grew up in the Deep South. My dad lost his job a lot. There was a lot of instability in the industry that he worked in, and so I went to 3 different kindergartens. I grew up in Texas, South Georgia, where the onions are from, Vidalia. And I'm the proud product of public education in Alabama from 6th grade to 12th grade, where I grew up 80 miles from Selma and the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And so growing up in the cradle of the civil rights movement, particularly as a brown woman with a funny name that was neither black nor white, and understanding how to navigate that world and understanding the lessons of civil rights was transformative in terms of who I am, what I value, and what I want to do with my life. And so I, as my parents will tell you, came by my fight and my negotiation skills honestly, in the sense that English was my third language, but most of my family members didn't speak great language, great English. And so at 8, 9, 10, 11, I was negotiating power bills and medical bills for my family, things that still continue to happen today. I understood and appreciated the role of the law in our society, which is why I reversed a lot of things in my family to include the first lawyer. And so we're going to talk a lot about experience today, but what I want to tell you is that in my 20-year legal career, I spent the majority of that time in public service at the Department of Justice, where it was my privilege and honor to stand in court as a personification of the American dream every day to say Hedl Doshi for the people of the United States. Now, as a federal prosecutor, it looks like my time is up, so that's a cliffhanger. More soon.
You can stay up. This question will go to you, then David, and Michael. You will have 1 minute.
Okay.
Sorry, lawyers.
I've got some stress.
This question is about ICE. Immigration law is federal law, and all three of you have talked about how the current Attorney General and how you will take on the Trump administration. Candidates for all offices in Colorado say that the number one thing they're hearing on doors is about how to stop ICE. How will you, if you are elected, work against ICE and those who support ICE?
In 1 minute. Okay, is this going to start again? Yeah. Okay, has it started?
Yeah, when you start answering, I'll start.
Okay.
Okay.
Y'all instilled the fear of God in us, okay? All right, this is a great question. It's a difficult question to answer in 1 minute, but let me start with this. It is so clear to me that this is an existential moment that is going to be one of those moments that 20 years from now, people will say, where were you when and what did you do? I have never run for office before, never wanted to, and I feel called to serve in this moment because of my identity, because I wake up every day and I make the decision not to carry my passport with me because I don't believe that America. So, a couple of things about ICE. Number one, ICE agents and any federal agent that violates state law is accountable under state law. But it is a hard, complicated set of prosecutions. And so I would humbly submit to you that the person that you put in charge of the Attorney General's office, who's going to be making history when charging ICE agents, have done criminal law before, right? The reason for that is because there is a way to navigate the complexities of the Supremacy Clause, and I want to be really clear with you about this. The worst thing we could do is take on the federal government with a half-baked theory and lose. It is critical that when we show up and say to the federal government, we're taking you to court, that
Thank you.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. The stakes are so high. Several months ago, we had a client of ours, the Georgia Justice, call us and say that her boss told her the next time she asks for her paycheck, she'll get a bullet in the head and a call to ICE. That's what we're up against right now. As your next Attorney General, I would create an ICE accountability unit to make sure that we fight back and use all of the tools of the law to do it. That includes, yes, prosecuting ICE officers when they trample our rights. It was the first Attorney General candidate in the country to say that before Minnesota, right? Because we've got to see threats to our democracy before they appear on the nightly news. Those cases, they are absolutely going to be hard. But people told us when we brought our case against the Geo Group, the private prison company, that no one could bring that kind of case, that it wouldn't work. And we just won in the United States Supreme Court on that, tens of thousands who are taking on that first in the nation fight. We also need to stand up to those at home that are collaborating with us, like the governor. That's why we sued him and stopped him from turning over Colorado's personal information to ICE. And we got to do the same for sheriffs across the state that are complicit and are explicitly saying that they're not going to follow Colorado law.
Thank you, David.
I'm the proud grandson of Irish immigrants, so this question to me is not what I'm going to do as a candidate for Attorney General, it's about what I've been doing for years. So when I became District Attorney of Boulder County in 2018, I had an immigrant protection program. And I got law enforcement to agree with me that we would never once ask anybody their status in this country. And if we find out, when we found out, we would never report it to the federal government. That's why I was asked to help on legislation last year to take that policy statewide. That's now the law in the state of Colorado. I've been doing Know Your Rights trainings in Boulder County since 2018. Because let's face it, both parties have failed to deliver on comprehensive immigration reform. Immigrants have been under attack for far too long. And I've been doing Know Your Rights trainings all around the state. It's also about banning private prisons in the state of Colorado. I'm going to continue to fight to make that happen. Right now, our legislature is giving more money to Core Civic, not less. I'm going to fight to change that and to give the AG the authority that exists in other states to inspect private prison facilities, but also holding ICE agents fully accountable as I have police officers. Thank you.
And you can hand that to David. But you can only say that by This next question is actually submitted by, was shared by a current attorney in the Attorney General's office who wanted me to ask you. There are hundreds of highly qualified public servants who work currently in the office. And what they said was, we hear a lot of talk about policy, but a huge part of the job is actually managing these civil servants. Many of whom, all of whom, who could probably go make more money tomorrow in some law office downtown and are choosing to serve. And they're asking for one, your experience in managing high-performing teams, and also how you would approach managing that office.
Thanks. As the executive director of Towards Justice, I've recruited and retained some of the best lawyers in the country to take on some of the biggest fights in the country against corporations and government agencies that have way more resources than we do. Making sure that those lawyers every single day are empowered and supported in taking on the biggest fights and going on offense for working families. That's fundamentally also the job of the Attorney General, making sure that the excellent lawyers who are there have the support, right, and have the vision from the top of the office every day to fight back for the people of Colorado, because that fundamentally is their extremely righteous responsibility. It is exceptionally important. Look, I don't know everything about every corner of that office. I know what I don't know. And I'm going to rely on the folks in the office, the excellent lawyers there, to make sure that I'm listening to them, right? And continue to support them in doing the excellent work that they've already been doing. But every single day, I will approach that work, the management of the office, with the core responsibility to make sure that you put the law on the side of the law.
You're good. We'll go to Michael next.
The person who asked that question asked because they're nervous about what comes after Phil Weiser. Because the 724 public servants who work there choose to work there and make sacrifices and make far less than they would in private practice because they believe in the mission of the office, and that comes from the top. So having someone with experience as a lawyer and as a leader, and the question is absolutely right. What experience do you have overseeing, inspiring, and leading hundreds of people? So overseeing the Manhattan DA's office and 1,300 people. Moving to Colorado to work for the Attorney General's office. 9 months after I arrived, I was put in charge of the entire criminal section for the Attorney General's office and made Deputy Attorney General. 9 months after I arrived in an office of hundreds. That's because I know what it takes to lead, including during times of crisis. It's also why I've handled cases all around the state of Colorado: environmental crimes, public corruption, election fraud, homicide, and human trafficking. It's about inspiring your staff. It's why in the District Attorney's Office in Boulder County, we've been a leader on criminal justice reform, but also on public safety. And I'll continue to do that as your next Attorney General.
Thank you, Michael.
Is that Pat talking?
That was that time, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think it was talking. Yeah, I heard that too.
I heard
like,
it too. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yep. Is that a new gambit?
Right.
I'm someone who appreciates this question because I have served as a line lawyer in the government, and I know what it's like to have a principal that's never done it before and doesn't know what they're asking you to do. And so I will share with you that I come to this experience with it. Part of the reason that I'm running this because I care a lot about making sure that the great people that work in the Attorney General's office stay in that office to fight for Colorado. I supervised and led a team of 800 lawyers and public servants, PhD economists, and professional staff at the Justice Department. I supervised and led over a $200 million budget. This job is directly analogous to my prior experience. The thing, though, that I think really matters, that's at the heart of this question, is service, particularly in the government, is unique. There are responsibilities you have and rules that you have to live by that are different than any other kind of service. And so I promise to every 724 people in that office that I will never ask them to do something that I haven't done before and that I'm not willing to sit down in the trenches and partner with them on, because that's the core of
Thank you,
service.
Heather. And this question will be for Michael. Well, all of you, but Michael will go first, and then Heather, and then David. This question was, I'm paraphrasing from a question that I received from an incarcerated person. They said, the Attorney General is the people's lawyer. They also are tasked with representing state agencies. How would you approach situations where state agencies are acting contrary to the people's interests?
Well, thank you for that question. It highlights the important role of the Attorney General that I'll take on in fighting against private prisons. It's also why I led sentencing reform efforts statewide just 3 years ago, and why I'm a leader on criminal justice reform. But it's also about recognizing that the Attorney General's role in representing the state agencies, the people of Colorado have to come first. People's civil rights have to come first. Standing up for human rights has to come first, before you just toe the line with state agencies. I'll give you a great example. Right now, there's a DNA analyst from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation who stands indicted for misconduct on DNA tests. The AG's office has to take a stand on behalf of the people first and foremost before worrying about representing the same agency that allowed her to commit misconduct for years. It's why I'm going to bring a conviction integrity unit to the Attorney General's office to ensure that we're doing justice around the entire state of Colorado. It's why when I asked the head of the EPA what's the greatest obstacle on environmental protection, and she says the state agency that allows Suncor to contaminate communities, I'm going to end it.
So remember I told you I was going to tell you about what I did at DOJ? Well, when I started as an assistant United States attorney, I did corporate misconduct cases, but I also did public corruption and civil rights work. And so this question speaks directly to the heart of experience and why it matters in this particular moment. When state agencies and public officials act in contrary to the interests of Coloradans, it is the job of the Attorney General to mediate that dispute and to fight for the people, not necessarily for the agencies. But it is also critical that the Attorney General have the experience and credibility to take state agencies who are doing one thing, but should perhaps be doing another, and be a credible actor to persuade them and motivate them to change course. I am someone who has had experience with respect to state agencies, federal agencies, and otherwise, asking them, negotiating with them, and giving them arguments as to why they should change course. And so that experience, I think, speaks to the heart of this question, which is to say, hold your agencies accountable when they're violating the law, but second, find a way to make those agencies partner.
Thank you, Madam.
The person who asked this question is a client of mine. I know that because we just fought and won a trial, a first in the nation case on behalf of every single person incarcerated in Colorado, taking on the governor and the Department of Corrections for their repeated violations of Amendment A, the constitutional provision that you all voted on here in Colorado to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude in all circumstances, even for those who have been convicted of a crime. It passed with 66% of the vote, and when it passed, nothing changed. Absolutely nothing. The work of the Attorney General fundamentally, and Colorado Supreme Court has been clear about this, the responsibilities of the Attorney General fundamentally are to fight for the people of Colorado, not just for the governor and for the governor's agencies. Yes, absolutely, we have to represent those agencies and making sure that they follow the law and also making sure they do right by the people of Colorado. But when they don't, we also are there, the Attorney General's office is also there to say, we're going to make sure that you come to compliance. And if we get sued for that, right, we're not going to necessarily fight that case tooth and nail, because the role is not to win trials and just protect the people of Colorado.
And David, keep the mic.
Okay,
You're next.
Let's keep going.
And then we'll go David, Heddle, and Michael for this question. This question was, I'm paraphrasing because I can't speak like a Gen Z person, but this is submitted a question I received from a student at Community College of Denver.
Bluetooth has disconnected.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
The question is, AI is out of control, and yet our lawmakers are doing nothing to regulate it.
I do not feel that consumer protection laws adequately address the new nature of AI and all of the damage it's causing me and my community. How would you as an Attorney General, if there are not current state laws in place that adequately address this challenge, how would you address this?
I appreciate the question, but I do have to start by just saying that actually one of the most important things that we're going to have to do to hold the AI systems of soon-to-be trillionaires accountable is to use the laws on the books boldly and courageously, including our consumer protection laws that prohibit unfair, deceptive acts and practices and unfair methods of competition. That's the work that I've been doing my entire career. We just brought a first-in-the-nation lawsuit, for example, on behalf of potentially millions of people who have applied for jobs with the biggest corporations in the country, have been screened from those jobs through AI systems that are spying on them, that are capturing information about them from the internet and scoring them from 0 to 5 based on their likelihood of success on the job. Right? We didn't need new laws on the books to hold them accountable. We just needed to enforce the ones already on the books from the 1970s and 80s that protect us against abuses by credit reporting agencies. Absolutely, we're going to need to show up in the legislature to take on the big and bold legislative fights, but fundamentally this is also about enforcing the laws on the books with boldness and courage, and that's what I'm going to do next.
Thank you, David. Hello.
So I agree with David that I think there is, in the quest to find new tools, we can't abandon the existing tools. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. So how many of you heard about the Ticketmaster jury verdict this week? Okay, you're looking at the top Biden-Harris antitrust litigator who's appointed by the Biden-Harris administration to lead antitrust enforcement in that administration, and I was the prosecutor who brought that case. The reason I tell you that is because the law that case was brought under is from 1890. All right? So I understand the point that this question is premised in, because I think if you're a student and a young person today, you are facing a colossally different job market. So let's deal with that problem as we see it in terms of making sure that our economy works for everyone, right? But in addition to that, this is so creepy, the sound is coming. In addition to that, I do agree that in addition to the existing tools that we have, that there is room for new tools. As someone who has to persuade judges and has done it for 2 decades about new technologies and old laws, having new tools on the books could be helpful, and I would be a partner on that.
I'll give you an extra second because I have creepy voice.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that's
yeah. Speaking of robots,
yeah.
Yes. Didn't like your answer.
It's a fan of Ticketmaster.
I'd love that someone in community college asked this question. I'm a proud graduate of community college. I put myself through school by loading trucks at UPS at night, and we need young people engaged in this fight. So kudos to you for submitting this question. It's also an important question for us as a state, and it's about, do we put profits over people and our environment? And too often we've answered profits. And as Attorney General, I will answer no. We'll be people and our environment. I look at the community that's been hurt by Suncor all these years. The last thing in the world they needed is what they're about to get, which is another data center. As your Attorney General, I have promised to put controls in place around AI. As I have fought for with social media, where over social media apps we have so many of our kids in drug dealing, gun dealing, and child sexually exploitative materials, I fought to get a bill passed last year, strong bipartisan effort, vetoed by the governor. So what did we do? We brought it back again this year, and we got passed into law. That's what I'm going to do, is fight against the corporations for the people. Thank you. And it's about taking on corporations. That's why I'll be back soon to talk to you about that next piece.
Keep the mic, Michael. And then we'll do Michael, David, then Helen. This question, I'm combining 2 questions, and I mean, you're probably easier. It was submitted by one of the 2 representatives who's covered by this district, so you can make your own guesses based on that. It is a topic on criminal justice. And what they said was, they think that it doesn't, Democrats, when they're running for office as Attorney General, don't talk much about the criminal justice portion of Attorney General. And they would like to know about your approach and how you would interact with that as Attorney General. And in particular, they would like you to weigh in on SB 217, and how it's impacted, and if there should be any changes to that as Attorney General. Just a minute. Yes.
That's not.
You can do with that.
You gotta tell me what SB 17 is.
I'm gonna let okay, actually, I will let you. Excuse me. It modified, essentially ended qualified immunity for police officers. Am I correct? Is that correct?
Yes, I can jump in too.
Go ahead.
Senate Bill 217 did a couple things, and I was the only district attorney in the state of Colorado to testify in support of Senate Bill 217. Changed the immunity piece, but it also required body-worn cameras for all law enforcement throughout the state of Colorado. It's about transparency and accountability. I've successfully prosecuted police officers and others in power and authority. Most recently, in December, I tried a case because I believe if you're going to be a leader, you should be willing to do the work that you ask others to do. I prosecuted a fire department captain who used his power and authority to sexually assault 5 women working within the fire department, including 2 17-year-olds. He has now been sentenced to 55 years to life. It's about standing up and holding those in power fully accountable. And with criminal justice, to me, it's always been about standing and fighting for justice and the rule of law, but also working to improve the justice system so it works for all. That's why I was the first district attorney in the state of Colorado to launch a mental health diversion program, a Fresh Start warrant forgiveness program, the first DA in the state of Colorado to open his or her books, 5 years worth of case data, and invite an independent agency to come in and review for racial inequities. And then I put all that data on my website, and we used it to drive positive change and improve the justice system. That's what I promise to continue doing as your next Attorney General.
Thank you very much for explaining. Next up, Dave.
Thanks so much. One of the most important responsibilities of the next Attorney General will be to enforce the criminal laws and also to hold law enforcement agencies accountable when they trample our rights, including right here in Colorado. What I have seen throughout the course of my career, bringing wage theft cases, trafficking cases, racketeering cases, what I have seen is that very often the folks who are breaking the laws wearing suits are the ones getting away with it, right? Fundamentally, when it comes to law enforcement accountability, this is the work that we've done in holding the Department of Corrections accountable for violating our rights under MMA. There's a lot more work that the next Attorney General is going to need to do to hold law enforcement agencies accountable, because we see, for example, the Aurora consent decree isn't doing all it needs to do. We've got 4 unarmed black men who've been killed in Aurora, shot by police since the Aurora consent decree went into place. With respect to SB 217, yes, absolutely, it should be expanded. We should make sure that there's the equivalent of a Section 1983 here in Colorado, so that for all government actors accountable when they trample our rights, because we need to make sure that those causing us harm are held accountable.
Thank you.
So the beginning of this question started with a place of what is the Attorney General's role with respect to criminal justice? And I think that's an incredibly important question. As a former federal prosecutor, I spent days navigating exactly this issue, which is to say I became a white-collar criminal prosecutor in part because I was tired of seeing the poorest in our societies, largely communities of color, be held up for every single law violation, while those of us that had the most resources, opportunity, never ever had any sort of law enforcement encounters, right? And so it was a particular privilege and an opportunity to be able to say, whatever limited talents I have, I will be dedicating them to making sure that the most powerful people in our society are held to account under the same system of justice. And as your next Attorney General, I will tell you that with a federal government that has completely abandoned federal white-collar enforcement, market manipulation, corporate misconduct, that is a priority for me in this office, and you will see the fine prosecutors in that office do that work. I support Senate Bill 217. I think it's critical to hold law enforcement accountable. My career has demonstrated that. I'm quite proud of my track record.
We'll do one more question that's been submitted, and then we'll ask, and you give it to David.
Okay. We're really nervous about
this.
Yeah.
And this question, again, we'll open up to some audience questions after this. This question is more open-ended. You please describe a case that you worked on directly and what it demonstrates about you and how you would serve as Attorney General.
In 2017, Donald Trump nominated Andy Puzder to be Secretary of Labor. What qualified him for the job, apparently, was that he was the CEO of Carl's Jr. And he used to run around saying that working people in this country didn't need minimum wage laws. All they needed was a free market, right? But what we know, what I know, what the people I've fought for all know, is that the market isn't free. It is so often rigged in favor of those with wealth and power. And so we looked at the fine print of Andy Puzder's franchise agreements at Carl's Jr., and sure enough, we saw that those franchise agreements prevented people like my client Luis from moving between jobs to seek out ones that would pay him more or treat him better. What kind of free market is that? So I brought the first antitrust case in the country to challenge these kinds of arrangements, franchise no-poach cases. We said, you know what? The antitrust laws, they apply to low-wage workers too, right? And because of that case, fast food franchise worker wages have gone up by 7 to 8% across the country. We have freed hundreds of thousands from those kinds of restraints. It's about using the laws and the books boldly and courageously to fight for the least among us.
Thank you. Let's go ahead on that. I know it's hard to summarize an entire case in a minute, so I'll let you finish your sentence with it.
So we have one more sentence.
Yes.
Okay.
Short sentence.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to tell you about some more antitrust here in a minute. So the case I want to tell you about is a case involving the merger of two massive publishing houses, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster. It was a $3 billion deal several years ago. At the Department of Justice, when I served as the top antitrust litigator for the Biden administration, we sued to block this deal. Everyone told us we were insane. If you look at all the internet, like the big newspapers, editorials, Justice Department has lost its mind. Here's why they said that it was crazy. Historically, when you challenge two companies merging together, the only way you can challenge that merger is by proving that prices of the product will go up. In this merger, though, it wasn't that the price of the books were going to go up. It was that the money that is paid to investigative journalists, to creatives, for people for their labor would go down. And so my argument to the court was, if it is true that when two companies come together and prices go up, we can block a merger, why is it also not true that our labor is worth protecting as well? We blocked that merger, made American history, it became the blueprint for the Kroger-Albertsons merger challenge right here in Colorado, and it proves that you can use the law to do new things, apropos that earlier question.
A case that reflects who I am, I'll give you two. So I was out in the community because I believe in community outreach and restoring trust in our democracy and government. And I kept hearing about 4-Star Realty. What's going on with 4-Star Realty? Are you aware of 4-Star Realty? So I teamed up with Phil Weiser, and we brought a civil action against 4-Star Realty for ripping off hundreds and hundreds of tenants at a time where people are struggling with affordability. And based on that civil suit, we got a $1 million settlement for all the victims of 4-Star Realty. Second, I was told there was an elected official, a state house representative, who might be engaging in election fraud in Boulder County. But I was told, she's a Democrat, you should get some other district attorneys so you don't have to go up against a member of your own party. I said, that's not my job. My job is not to defend Democrats and prosecute Republicans. My job is to do justice without fear or favor. So I brought the investigation forward. I prosecuted that case. She was held responsible and had to leave the state house. She was convicted of election fraud. Now she's working for an opponent of mine who's not here today, making calls for her campaign. If you're about election integrity, you don't have someone who committed election fraud campaigning against me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll open up some questions from the audience. I'm going to go here to Shelby, and I see you in the back.
Thank you. If you could hire one person to be your assistant deputy attorney general, a legal luminary, someone from history, a fictional character, Vinny Gambini from My Cousin Vinny, who would be your dream assistant deputy attorney general?
Let's start with Heddle. Then we'll go to Michael and then David.
And are these this is the lightning round?
Let's do lightning round. I mean, do you need a minute to
No,
explain
no,
this?
no,
Yeah, let's just
I don't
go.
need a minute for this one.
Look, I want to say Beyonce, but we're not going to say that. In
instead, I'm going to say Robert Jackson, who is a luminary in the field of economic justice, and I am someone who believes that, and I think this is critical for the next Attorney General, that our problems with the criminal justice system are fundamentally problems of the lack of economic opportunity. And so I picked Robert Jackson because I think that the idea of using laws to make sure that we all have a fair shot at the American dream is the foundation to our democracy.
So many possibilities here. I'm going to go with Justice Sonia Sotomayor, although she should stay in her job. Absolutely stay in her job. One of the things that I respect so much about Justice Sotomayor is that she has followed an amazing path to the bench and done it by developing, not only fighting for the least among us throughout her career, but also done it by charting out a new path in the law. So often her dissents, right? Her dissents, speaking out against the outrages all around us, right? Loudly and with crystal clarity, are inspiring to me and should be inspiring to all of us. Because fundamentally, I think one of the most important things that we need to appreciate right now about our country and where it is that one of the key things that we need to do as patriots is to dissent, and to do it with clarity, and to do it with vision, and to do it with righteousness and commitment to the values upon which this country was founded. And that's what Justice Sotomayor helps to exemplify for all of us.
Thank you. I see both of you putting in some campaigning in there. So yeah, 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
It's a great question, and a long list of people come to mind, but I'm going to go with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Because of her career and legacy in standing up and fighting for what's right, even when the winds were blowing against her. And being one of the first women on the U.S. Supreme Court, but also never shying away from the battle that had to be fought, including when she was in the minority on the court. And I think that highlights the time we're living through right now, standing up strong for what's right and doing it for the right reasons. That was her whole career. That's her legacy. I'd be honored to have her on my team. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 questions. And I will, if someone hasn't asked a question and would like to, raise your hand high if you want to ask a question. You've not asked a question, so
So thank you. I know you talked a little bit about law enforcement, but I'm interested, how do you plan to work with local law enforcement to address the treatment of marginalized Coloradans, so people of color, LGBTQ, immigrants, and so on, and also to investigate patterns and practices of misconduct within law enforcement?
Lightning round. No, I'm kidding. This will be 1 minute, and we'll start with Michael, and then we'll go Heddle, and then David.
Thank you for that question, and it's the type of work I've been doing my entire career. So our immigrant protection program in Boulder County, the criminal justice reforms I've led on, I've been able to get law enforcement to agree with each and every one of those, ensuring that their officers and their deputies are following the law and standing up and fighting for what's right, while also holding them accountable when they break the law. And I've successfully prosecuted police officers. There are 2 sheriff's deputies in state prison right now, because my office prosecuted them. We're prosecuting a paramedic who killed a person of color in police custody. It's why I'm honored to have the endorsement from the Rocky Mountain Equality Action Fund for standing for LGBTQ plus community members when they're under attack every day. And it's about recognizing that law enforcement has a tremendous amount of responsibility, and they need to be led by someone who knows what that means and with integrity, but also who's going to hold them accountable. So when it comes to, for example, the Aurora Police Department, that consent decree was a good start, but we need more teeth in that agreement. That needs to be enforced, and the right thing has to be done, and I promise you I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
As a former prosecutor, I spent a lot of time engaging in exactly this question, and I spent my nights and weekends in places where I helped to train law enforcement and also bridge community partnerships between local law enforcement and the communities that they serve, houses of worship, community centers, immigrant organizations, because I think that the first time that our communities, particularly marginalized communities, should be encountering law enforcement is not in a moment of crisis. That's critical. The second thing is that I think that having worked with law enforcement for a long time and seeing the distinction between those who take their oath seriously and those who don't, it is critical that you be someone who is a credible actor and leader for law enforcement such that you're going to internally hold them accountable. I had an event the other night for the campaign, and 2 local law enforcement officers that I had previously worked with and mentored showed up, which really meant a lot to me. I hadn't seen it. They didn't know I was running for office until they heard about the event. That right there, and both of them, we had tough conversations about cases that they wanted to bring that I thought were not right for reasons that don't matter here today, but I think that type of mentorship matters a lot.
Thank you, Helen.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh,
No, you're still answering.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was like, happy to
Yeah.
Thanks so much for the question. I want to talk about 2 things. First, we are seeing a really concerning and very, very dangerous trend along some local law enforcement here in Colorado to violate state law and collaborate with ICE is extremely dangerous. I've got clients across Colorado who are scared to call 911, scared to report their boss for wage theft, scared to stand up against landlords, right, that are providing unsafe and unhealthy living conditions. It's dangerous for all of us. That's why my organization sent a cease and desist letter to the Garfield County Sheriff. As Attorney General, I think we're going to need to stand up to sheriffs in El Paso County, Teller County, in far too many places in the state that have said openly they will flagrantly violate Colorado law and collaborate with ICE in doing so. I also want to talk about the Aurora consent decree, which absolutely is a great start, and yet still, as I mentioned earlier, 4 unarmed black men have been shot and killed by the Aurora Police Department since that consent decree went into place. We need to do much more on this front. The energies surrounding the police department and law enforcement accountability after George Floyd have fizzled, but we've got to keep the heat on every step of the way. All right, there you go.
And final question, and we will have a 1-minute closing after that.
Yeah, this is a question probably that you want to address from a federal or national level, but my question is about, we all know that immigrants who come to this country, and I'm talking about legal immigrants, who come in whatever way they come in legally, they still have to endure 5, 10, 15, 20 years of waiting through bureaucracy after bureaucracy in order to get their final citizenship. And now, with the situation the way it is now, a lot of those people have been detained by ICE while they're waiting. But my question to you all is, what are your recommendations? Not that you could do it as the DA of Colorado, but what, as a lawyer, as attorneys that have worked for immigration, what do you recommend nationally to do? What do we have to do in this country to decrease the time that it takes for legal immigrants to finally achieve citizenship? Is it a matter of manpower? Is it a matter of what? And what would you recommend on a national level? And I guess it would have to be acts of Congress, but whatever.
It's a big question to answer in 1 minute. Hedl, David, Michael. Then you will have time to do the closing.
Great. I was a high school debater, and so I'm really tempted to go really fast here to get all my points in. Go ahead. I'm going to resist.
Don't talk too fast.
Okay, here we go. All right, so look, I think that this question is one that has personally impacted my family, but many of whom are still in uncertain status in this moment, right? And waiting for papers and understanding every time they take a flight somewhere, they may be impacted by this issue. So a couple of thoughts that I have, and as you wisely know, this is largely a federal question. Number one, federal courts are limited, they have a 6-month list, right? Where if they don't adjudicate certain disputes by the 6-month period, they're on a nasty list that goes to Congress. Our courts and our immigration courts should be on a 6-month list. That is not currently the case. Second, there is a huge backlog in terms of funding with respect to DHS that is funding largely for, and if you've been following the news this week, largely untrained, improper law enforcement agents as opposed to processing of legal immigration. If I were queen for a day, I would change that and flip that inside out. The third thing I think that needs to happen is to have proper training on the front end and education around when people come into the country to give them a better sense of what timing and responsibility is going to look like. Because without that, they're in the position they're in today. I tried.
There really is so much to say here. I absolutely agree first with my friend Heddle's comment about funding. Fundamentally, we have to look at where our funding goes and what our priorities are. Right now, we are weaponizing. We're spending billions and billions and billions and billions weaponizing our immigration system in order to punish people, in order to terrify our communities. It's actually the basis for a lawsuit that we brought on behalf of every TSA agent in the country. Because TSA agents weren't paid during the government shutdown, and ICE agents were, right? But we need to make sure that we have an immigration system that works the way it ought to, right? That it used to be before ICE that we treated immigration as paperwork issues, right? And we actually tried to focus on making the immigration system work for people as opposed to weaponizing it in order to punish them, right? That's why I say we got to abolish ICE to return to that kind of system. Also, we've got, when we engage in systematic immigration reform, we have to look very hard at visas that keep people trapped in their jobs. That's work that I've been doing my entire career, setting up, for example, for H-2A workers, H-2B workers. Those kinds of visas come very quickly, right? Especially when powerful corporate interests want them in order to keep workers indentured to them.
Thank you, David. Michael?
I think my friends Heddle and David have defined the problem well. And to me, the solution that we need as a country is the right to counsel for every immigrant who's going through the process. That has to happen. If someone broke the window of this beautiful church right now, they would have an attorney appointed to represent them. It is crazy to me that as a country, we don't have attorneys representing people who are trapped in the immigration system. It's why when people are held in these private detention facilities, they don't have a voice. They're being treated cruelly and unusually with no voice and no advocate in their corner. It's why I'm going to fight as your next Attorney General, get a law passed, much like they did in other states, to have the Attorney General have the power to inspect these facilities and bring civil rights violations and criminal charges against the people working in the facilities and the companies that run them. It's why I'm going to continue to fight for ICE to have to take down their masks and identify themselves and be held accountable for the crimes they commit. It's why I'm doing Know Your Rights trainings all around the state of Colorado and in Boulder County since 2018. It's why I got that YWCA award earlier this week. It's what I've been doing for years, and I promise to continue doing it as your next Attorney General. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. How long do we have? For 1 minute. 1 minute.
How are you feeling right now? Feeling good?
Yeah.
I'm just stalling.
Let's finish your sentence. Nuggets.
First and most importantly, go Nuggets. Big Nuggets fan. We'll be on the road to Pueblo because it's about showing up. And I'm glad you're here. And the question you wanted to ask that we didn't get to was about being a spokesperson for the Democratic Party. And I'm just going to tell you what I thought when you asked it, which is I'm not a spokesperson for the Democratic Party. I'm a proud and lifelong Democrat who's always going to stand and fight for what's right. And as your next Attorney General, I'll be independently elected. And I'm going to restore trust with the 49% of the country, the state, 49% of the state, who've become unaffiliated voters, who are tired of hyper-partisan politics that don't produce real results. And I'm going to stand and fight for our environment and civil rights and consumers and abortion access. That takes experience as a lawyer and as a leader. Everywhere I've been asked to lead an effort. That's what we need right now in the AG's office. We're facing a crisis. I could serve 6 more years as the district attorney of Boulder County and have a job that I love and live 10 minutes from the courthouse. I'm asking you to give me a significant pay cut and a much longer commute because the moment calls for us to stand and fight for what's right. That's why I'm with you today, and that's why I'm going to be Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to share the following, not to elicit your sympathy, because all of us are just human beings that have experiences like this one, but because it's helped to crystallize in my mind something that is exceptionally important. We put my father on hospice this week, and I've often shared stories about his illness on this campaign when I talk about how corporations and billionaires have hijacked our healthcare system in order to pad their bottom line and turn our healthcare system into something fundamentally doesn't work for us. But the thing that I'm carrying with me today is just this core realization that we have a very limited amount of time on Earth, right? On this little rock floating around in the universe. Fundamentally, we all deserve a world where we can live a life of our choosing, where we can have the basic things, right? The right to a union, the right to breathe clean air, the right to an abortion, the right to go to the doctor and put a roof over our heads and still have a little bit of money left over to take our kids on vacation afterwards. And I know that if we use the law boldly and courageously, we can fight for that world. That's why I'm running for this.
Thank you so much to all of you for being here and spending this beautiful Saturday with us. There are a couple of things that I wanted to tell you. The first is, I think you can see, for the three of us that showed up here today, that all of our hearts are in the right place and that our values are aligned and that we want to do the right thing for the right reasons and the right thing. That's what you want, and that's what you want. And the thing that I would humbly submit to you that you think about when you make a tough decision about who to support is, it's not just those values, although we're lucky that we all have them, right? It's execution on those values. How are we going to deliver for the people of Colorado? And so, if we're taking on a lawless federal government, I am the only candidate in this race that has been a federal lawyer and an employee for the federal government. I know where the bodies are buried. I know how to challenge the limits of federal power. I am the only candidate in this race that has the right set of experiences to take on all the types of corporate fights that we've talked about, not because it's aspirational, but because I've done it. I've recovered billions of dollars for you. And so that experience matters more now than ever, and I would be grateful and honored to have your support.
I just want to say thank you for being here, and another round of applause. We're really incredible. Class dismissed. Thank you so much. Oh yeah.
Civil rights.
Congratulations. Nice to see you too. Great little event. Great little event.
This is the third floor.
Good to see you. Nice to see you.
Jackson, it's always been what we saw here, and then at the first 2 weeks we had personal and then this one too. It's just so yeah, I thought the field would narrow more.
Yeah. One of the challenges, especially in this one,
right? Everyone's on balance. Thank you.
This is our live stream.
Yeah.
This was our best internet.
This was the internet was strong.
The first year is we had to all send some things in the home to reset the router because it wouldn't let any new devices run. Yeah. Oh yeah. And they got there probably 2 minutes before you got started, so that was fun.
That was a tight one.
I've not had a conversation with him.
Just talk about it like she's so Thank you. And expected that she's gonna come on.
I don't know if you guys are cutting out very soon, so if you are, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was great, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.